When Lily finds the eggs under the bed, she is both fascinated and concerned. She didn't know what type of eggs they were or where they came from, so she decided to consult an expert to find out. Eventually, she found a specialist, and after a few phone calls, he agreed to come and take a look. Once the expert arrived, he examined the eggs carefully. As he checked, his face paled and his frightened eyes grew wider. Then he said, "These are no ordinary eggs. We need to evacuate your house." The commotion in the family, especially in the presence of a daughter as young as Lily, made Lily's parents uneasy. They tried to argue about the evacuation, but quickly realized they had no room for argument. They should leave as soon as possible because this situation is very serious. None of the scientists said a word after learning what the eggs really were made of. At first, they thought these were just weird eggs, but upon closer inspection, they discovered that they were far from ordinary. The news devastated Lily's parents, who wasted no time in consulting an expert for an explanation. The worried looks on the scientists' faces let them know that something was wrong. They don't even have time to prepare their luggage. They just need to get out of that place. Lily watched her parents leave in a hurry, guided by the expert and his team. Lily was never the same girl after that. But what's so dangerous about these strange eggs? Why did the experts flee the house so quickly, and why were they in such a panic? Like most little girls, Lily was always terrified of what might be hiding under the bed. Every morning, she carefully checks under the bed, hoping to find nothing unusual. This particular Sunday morning, however, was different. To her surprise, she found a strange pile of eggs under the bed. This unexpected discovery marks the beginning of an extraordinary and confusing journey for her. Lily was startled and hurried downstairs to find her parents, Oscar and Celie. She called out to them, but there was no immediate response. When she finally got their attention, she excitedly told them she had found strange eggs under the bed. At first, they were skeptical, but the fear in Lily's eyes made them decide to follow her back upstairs. Even Lily's parents couldn't hide their surprise when they saw these mysterious eggs. They question Lily, wondering if she has a way of keeping them there, but soon realize she's innocent and confused by the egg's existence. Oscar's curiosity worked. He tentatively reached for one of the eggs, but when he felt the warmth coming from it, he quickly withdrew his hand. Confused and unsure as to what to do next, they couldn't even be sure what type of eggs they were. In order to calm Lily's anxiety and deal with the problem as soon as possible, Oscar and Healy decided to seek professional help. The eggs appear to be warming up, suggesting they may hatch soon. In retrospect, that possibility is far from comforting. Experts were called to the terrified family less than 15 minutes after the emergency call for help. Surprisingly, he seemed reluctant to continue upstairs, adding to an unsettling feeling. At first, the experts took out the photos, looked at a few, and questioned whether those were the eggs found in the attic with Oscar and Celie. Then, they found a photo of the egg in question. Experts were shocked when they pointed to the photo. He chose not to answer. Considering the time limit, he immediately asked if he could go upstairs. What exactly is going on? Lily was terrified because she could tell from the experts' expression that the problem was serious. She has good reason. The man with the requisite expertise worked up the courage to enter the room, then used a flashlight to examine in detail what was under the bed. He quietly searched under the bed for quite a long time, and the family sat nervously in their seats waiting for his investigation. They crave explanations and even hope to find solutions to their problems. While waiting for a response, there was a sudden loud bang, seemingly from nowhere. They were all startled. The specialist was terrified and screamed loudly. He had been working quietly and intently until suddenly he was screaming like his worst nightmare. Oscar hugged Lily tightly, hoping she wouldn't get too excited. What will be under the bed? Why do experts scream that way? Still, experts aren't standing up. He continued to check everything while Oscar and Lily had no idea what was going on. Oscar considered various possible explanations. He gradually loses his patience as he desperately wonders if the situation is really that serious. However, he can't just ask the person who has the most expertise on the subject, because he can't, can he? Eventually, the specialist stood up, avoiding the eyes of his family. Oscar thought this was ridiculous. He angrily stepped forward and demanded that he at least describe what he saw and what made him yell. But when the specialist turned to leave, he yelled at Oscar, "I need backup. Leave me alone." However, this only further confuses Oscar's understanding of the situation. Not only is this a place he calls home, doesn't he care about it more than a professional? Also, Siri now joins them. Seely was more calm than Oscar, asking politely what was going on, and asking if they could be of any help. However, his response only added to their concerns. Experts reacted more positively to this. He looked worriedly in Lily's direction, clearly trying to communicate with his parents. Despite his best efforts, he could barely find the right words. He stammered and spoke incoherently. Are these eggs really that weird or harmful? During this time, experienced people contacted backup for help. As much as he tried to explain everything to them in detail, it seemed like he had to repeat the same things over and over. This leaves us with no choice but to conclude that his backing doesn't know much about the issue either. The seasoned specialist waited for backup to arrive before hanging up. Lily, Seely and Oscar were instructed to wait in the living room for backup to arrive. They reluctantly complied, but were not sure exactly what they meant when they said backup. To the experts, did he call his boss? Or called his team members? What will happen if they come? They have too many problems. Backup finally showed up not long after, and it turned out to be a whole team. Little Lily got only a fleeting nod, and they barely noticed the family. Immediately they entered Lily's bedroom and slowly began to move the bed aside. Difficult operations have begun. People in white clothes filled Lily's room. As the men broke up the room, Oscar and Seely stood at their daughter's door, gasping in horror. They cleared all the furniture from the room, gathered around Lily's bed, and carefully raised the bed. Beneath their masks, the men could be heard whispering, sounding rather serious. However, the specialist's colleagues were also shocked when the bed was moved. Now that the eggs have been revealed, Oscar, Seely, and Lily have also seen that there are at least 5 eggs, and they are quite large. Plus, apparently the eggs are going to hatch earlier than expected. The team scrutinized the eggs, then stopped to talk. Oscar tries unsuccessfully to eavesdrop on their conversation. Still, he could sense that they seemed a little uneasy about the situation. Then, they move on. They take decisive action immediately after making a decision. Some took the egg samples, others stayed and sealed off Lily's room. Oscar, Seely and Lily feel bad that no one is allowed in anymore. Although by this time they all realized that the eggs were strange, no one explained it to them. In the end, they thought they needed to report their activities to the relevant authorities. What Oscar heard made him unbelievable. Is it really that scary? Given everything that happened, was there really a need to call the police? Because he had never seen the police in his neighborhood, he feared for his safety and the safety of those around him. He felt the police would arrest him for his innocence. Although he was fully aware that he had committed no crime, the presence of law enforcement made him uneasy. He tries to dissuade the expert, assuring him that the situation is not that dire and that together they can find a solution. But experts don't have time to listen to him. He has grown weary of his family's never-ending questions. He insisted they stay in the living room and let his team get on with their work. Before long, the home is full of cops and professionals. Feeling so unreal, the terrified family tried to comfort each other. Noticing their interest in the investigation dwindling, Oscar and Shirley grow increasingly concerned, fears that are quickly confirmed. Meanwhile, the officer in charge shows up. He took a serious look around the room and made the necessary conversations with Shirley and Oscar. Tragically, he was left speechless and made empty promises to appease them. He was then immediately joined by other agents and experts. They've made a discovery. Little Lily, Oscar and Seely tried to get closer. The specialists and the police were talking in low tones, but they still couldn't hear anything. Obviously, they cannot disclose this information directly to the family. Then Oscar noticed a strange look on a policeman's cheek. He realized how startled he looked, eyes wide open. The cop's expression made it clear that he had just been told something he hadn't heard before. Oscar eventually lost patience with the situation and ended up joining the team. Once he did, the officers immediately ended their whisper conversation. But Oscar didn't care about that. He insisted on an explanation from them. Oscar pressed the police for answers. But when he talks to them, each cop does something Oscar didn't expect. As they backed away and yelled, "Sir, stand still," Oscar wondered what was going on. Oscar was ordered to lie on the ground, but he didn't know the reason and couldn't resist. He knelt carefully and raised his hands. Inside the house, Siri and Lily peered in with wide-eyed eyes. Was Oscar arrested? Why do they act like this? Authorities said it was possible they were infected with the virus. Impossible. Oscar's eyes look like they are unique in the universe. Suddenly, however, he notices his young daughter Lily crying in front of their house. She seemed distraught about something. Why does this happen? Something was bothering her and making her act so disturbed. When the officer started using the weapon on the suspect, Oscar's anger was evident as he charged at the officer. They seem to have completely lost their minds, don't they? However, Oscar was immediately pushed to the ground. Oscar is delighted that Lily was taken away by a policeman who seemed to be more sane and treated her well. They then put Lily in another police car, along with wife Celie and Oscar, but they were all separated. What's going on? More people are coming. After a while, Oscar saw a large group of people in white protective clothing enter the house. Oscar waited hours until someone approached, confusing him. "Sir, we need to take you and your family with you," someone finally said to Oscar. "How is this going? Is he in custody?" In another car, Oscar heard his daughter crying. It was strange to see your own house, surrounded by police and people in hazmat suits, getting out of control. They put everything they took from his house in sealed grocery bags. It all seems so crazy. Oscar noticed that the person driving the car was not a policeman, but a man in a white protective suit. He tried to ask some questions out of confusion and concern, but they remained silent. Why were they dressed like that, and where were they taking him? Only more mysteries are revealed. They embarked on a journey totaling 2 hours and finally arrived at their destination, an airport. Oscar was confused and didn't know anything about the current situation. When he was being helped onto a waiting helicopter, he was suddenly taken away before disappearing shortly afterwards. Even though he didn't know where they were going or why they were going there, the terror and uncertainty made his heart beat faster. Furthermore, he has no idea of the destination. He tried to ask where his wife and daughter were. His voice was barely audible over the sound of the helicopter's propellers. He buckled up and put on earplugs, but Celie and Lily's other car was gone. He asked again, "Where are you taking me?" But no one answered. As he was in the air, Oscar's thoughts kept churning. Where are they taking him? Is his family there? He's curious, but knows asking won't help. In any case, no one will answer. But suddenly, a person said, "We are almost there, we only have 5 minutes left." Oscar tried his best to identify the terrain below through the window of the helicopter. There is no sign of life there, the terrain is desolate and dry. Suddenly he felt the helicopter begin to descend. He looked down, but the view below was indistinct. Where is this? Oscar was detained and questioned about the eggs. The Special Forces personnel wore full military equipment, and their serious expressions led Oscar into a small room. There was very little furniture in the room, just a table and 2 chairs. One of the soldiers motioned for Oscar to sit down, and then sat on the opposite chair. "Mr. Johnson, we need you to tell us all about those eggs," said the soldier, his tone leaving no room for it. "I don't know anything about them," Oscar answered, his voice trembling slightly. The soldier leaned forward, his eyes locked on Oscar. "It's hard for us to believe it. You live in the house where these eggs were found. You must know something." "I swear, I don't know anything about this," Oscar insisted, his heart pounding. The soldiers looked at each other, then relaxed their posture, sat down, and lowered their weapons. Oscar was told that the eggs came from a land called Island of the Dead. "They are very dangerous." The soldier sighed and sat back in his chair. "All right, Mr. Johnson. We'll take your word for it, but we need to tell you something. Those eggs come from a very dangerous place, the Island of Death." "Island of Death?" Oscar repeated, frowning. He never heard of it. "That's because it can't be found on any maps." The soldier explained, "It's a top-secret location, used by the government for classified operations. We think someone might have put those eggs in your home, to do harm as part of a larger plan." The soldier's words made Oscar's mind churn continuously. He once thought his life was simple and straightforward, but now he has fallen into a situation that is more complicated and dangerous than he imagined. He's worried about what's to come, as well as his wife Celie and daughter Lily. These eggs contain a rare creature that, if released into the world, would cause a national and even global crisis. Special Forces stresses the importance of keeping information about Egg and Dead Island secret. Celie and Lily were evacuated to a safe location, while Special Forces worked to contain the situation. Oscar, who had seen the eggs up close, and even touched them, suddenly became a useful resource for the investigative team. He was called to Dead Island to assist in the investigation. Oscar was taken to the Isle of the Dead, where his interrogation about the eggs continued. As Oscar spends more time on the island, he learns the seriousness of the government's covert operations, which include testing for dangerous biological and chemical substances. Oscar begins to understand the conditions on Dead Island and the risks posed by covert government operations. Special forces have made a huge effort to eliminate the danger posed by these eggs as soon as possible before it is too late. Oscar tries to help to the best of his ability and is concerned about the potential future for his daughter Lily if the situation is not managed. Special forces teams work tirelessly to eliminate the threat posed by these eggs. They set up a cordon around Oscar's home and brought in experts to analyze the eggs and the creatures that hatched from them. It was quickly determined that the creatures were extremely dangerous and the team knew they had to act quickly to prevent them from doing any harm. They work day and night to devise plans to eliminate this menace. After days of intense work, they finally succeeded in developing a chemical that could incapacitate the creatures without harming humans or other animals. The chemical is used quickly and the organisms are eliminated. As the story spread, world leaders grew concerned. It's clear that the eggs were placed in Oscar's house on purpose, and no one knows who did it. Rumors about the incident are spreading on social media, and the situation needs to be resolved. At an unexpected gathering of world leaders, they decided to set up a global task force to investigate the incident and find out who was behind it. The meeting is called immediately. To form the task force, professionals from around the world, including scientists, members of the military and intelligence personnel, were brought together. They put in a huge effort to gather evidence and find out who was behind it. The investigation into the incident was long and complex, but in the end, the task force finally identified who was behind it. Turns out a rebel nation developed the creatures as a secret biological weapons program. The eggs were implanted in Oscar's home to test whether they could cross the border undetected. The discovery shocked the international community, and the rebel nation was quickly condemned by world leaders. Economic sanctions and other measures were imposed, and the rebel states were forced to dismantle their biological weapons.